Today, I want to explain the power of this unbelievable strategy called cash flow flipping. Now, you've probably never even heard of the term cash flow flipping. But what if I told you that it takes proven real estate methods and combines them into a powerful real estate strategy that works in any economy? In this video, I will explain just that and show you how I came up with this strategy and how this hidden gem can work for anyone. And more importantly, how you can do it with little to no money out of your pocket. Think about it. What if there was a real estate strategy that worked regardless what was happening in the market conditions when it came to real estate, but it was especially beneficial in stagnant or downward markets? Well, that's exactly what cash flow flipping is. Stick with me in this video as I outline specifically what is cash flow flipping, by first telling you how I came up with this strategy and what real estate methods are incorporated for this innovative strategy. Next, I'm going to detail out exactly how this strategy of cash flow flipping works, and finally, what elements are absolutely crucial to make this the best real estate investing strategy you've ever heard of. If you're ready, let's go. So how did I come up with this strategy? Well, first and foremost, I have been involved in real estate investing for the last 22 years. And I've done everything under the sun, or at least it feels that way. In fact, one of the first deals I did in real estate, I actually flipped a contract on accident almost, where I made almost $40,000. That got me so excited about making money in real estate that it's been a passion of mine ever since. And it was something where I decided, you know what? I like all aspects of real estate, and I never honed into a certain strategy, but I wanted to fully understand all aspects of real estate. I've owned apartment buildings at some point. I've bought multifamily units. I've done lease options. I've bought vacation rentals, short-term rentals. I've done some development. I've even owned some storage units. So my experience in real estate is pretty vast. Now, some might say that's a jack of all trades, master of none, but it gave me a well-rounded education into real estate where I have been able to hone in to some strategies I really like. And because of this, I've been able to formulate something that works in any economy, especially a challenging economy or even a downward economy, and that works for anybody and takes little to no money out of your pocket. Now, as I've always said, in my real estate journey, I want to be as transparent as possible. I have made some absolutely great decisions in real estate, but I've also made some that weren't so great. And because I've made some that weren't so great, I want to help you understand and avoid the pitfalls before you get there. And my strategy for the longest time was kind of a buy and hold strategy. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I got really excited about the short-term rental market and really dove into that. And I got in at the right time. Prices were still a little bit lower and interest rates were extremely low. But as interest rates have climbed up and prices have gone up, it's made it harder to make some of those short-term rental options that I'm looking at to pencil. And then most recently, I was introduced to a gentleman that was in a mastermind with me. I had lunch with this individual, and he was telling me about a strategy he was doing. And this was about 1.5 years ago that I met this individual, and he was doing a strategy called a slow flip. And it was super interesting to me. I actually loved the idea of it. And this is how it works. Essentially, he was looking for inexpensive real estate in the Midwest that he could buy outright with private money from a private investor. And the goal behind this is he would take the money that he got from the private investor and buy the home outright with cash. So he would negotiate a lower price on the home, and because he was closing quickly and using cash, a lot of times the sellers would accept a lower price on the home. And his goal was to finance that home as if it were a car. Right? So he's looking to pay off within 5, 6, or 7 years the money to the private money lender, but lending out to the buyer, the new buyer that's going to buy the home from him, as if it were a 30-year mortgage. But the goal was to make sure that the money coming in from the buyer was exceeding the money being paid out to the lender. And there wasn't much of a margin there at all. I mean, he might break even or maybe make 20, 30 bucks a month. That didn't sound very exciting. However, once the loan was paid off to the private money person, say 5, 6, or 7 years down the road, all of a sudden that money coming in every single month was 100% pure profit, essentially, and it started to accumulate. If he had 10 properties, 20 properties, imagine making $900 to $1,000 a month every single month and not owing any mortgage on that property. Now that's after 5 or 6, 7 years. But I thought, what if you could do this strategy, but somehow cash flow? And if you could do it over and over again, how beneficial would that be? And with a slow flip, the typical instrument that's used is a land contract. It is a seller finance purchase where the seller and the buyer negotiate, and it really favors the seller, where the seller can actually act as a landlord in that situation, that if somebody stops making the payments or defaults on the contract, the seller can evict them, doesn't have to foreclose on the property, but still keeps and retains all that money. But once again, my biggest challenge with this is I did not like the little cash flow. So I thought, is there a way to do this similar strategy to be able to flip a home in a few years, kind of like a slow flip, but to be able to make extensive cash every single month? And here's what I came up with. Number one, I wanted to change this land contract to a lease option and change the loan from the private money from something that was amortized over, say, a 5, 6, 7 year period of time to an interest-only loan. Now you might say, why in the world would you do that? You're still gonna have money, but stick with me because I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised by what happens. But with that in mind, rather than a land contract, a lease option, and rather than paying off amortized over 5, 6, or 7 years, an interest-only loan, that's where cash flow flipping was born. So here's cash flow flipping. I'm still looking at properties at a discount just like I were if I was gonna do a slow flip. So I'm looking in the Midwest, and typically I'm looking for homes that are below $100,000. Now, when I find these homes, I need to make sure that I get these homes 30 to 40% below market value of the home or what they're listed at. So let's just use this as an example. Let's say that I found a home that is worth $70,000, and maybe the market of that home is $72,000, $75,000, but it's listed at $70,000. If I can get it for around $50,000, I'm going to execute on that. Now understand, because I'm trying to get properties at a discount, I might only have one accepted offer out of about 10. So understand, you've got to put a lot of offers out there. But if I'm paying cash for this property and I'm closing quickly and somebody says, you know what, I'll sell this home to you, and I've had people do this many times, I give them $50,000 and that money is lent to me by a private money lender. Now, private money lenders could range anywhere between 8 to 12 to 13, 14%. I've got some that are lending me money at 8 to 10%, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But even let's say that he was charging me 12% on the money. He gave me $50,000. 12% of $50,000 is $6,000 a year I'm paying in interest. But every single month, it's interest only, so that's $500 a month. Now, once I have this home that was listed or market value is $70,000, I got it at $50,000. I am gonna then go and look for somebody to buy the home for me in a lease option or a rent to own strategy. Now, the benefit of this, because it's a seller financing, a rent to own, this opens up the buyer pool. Somebody says, I can't buy a home right now, but 2 years from now, I absolutely could. And a lease option absolutely favors a buyer to buy a home down the road for a couple different reasons. Because with a lease option, number one, that buyer is gonna pay an option price. For them to be able to buy the home from me at a certain price down the road, they have to pay me an option to be able to do that. And that's usually anywhere between 2 to 7% of the purchase price. But I'm looking to sell that home as what it was listed for or market price right now. So let's say it was listed at $70,000. I'm turning around and selling it to the buyer for $70,000, but they're not closing on it until 2 years down the road. Now, the fact that it's 2 years down the road, in their eyes, they can see that they're buying something right now for $70,000. They could see that it was just listed at $70,000. And in their mind, 2 years from now, this property could appreciate. So they're excited. And I wanted to create that, a win-win situation for everybody. So I now have a lease option for them to buy it from me at 2 years down the road at $70,000 with something I bought for $50,000. Now that option price, let's just say it's $2,000. I hold on to that $2,000. That is cash I get right now from the buyer. Now, also in a lease option, a certain dollar amount of that monthly payment every single month, I'm gonna count and credit towards their down payment. So let's say that I'm charging them $1,000 a month, but I take $100 of that every month to put towards the down payment. After 24 months, 100 times 24 is $2,400. You add the $2,000 option payment, this buyer now has $4,400 that they can put towards their down payment on a home that they're closing in 2 years. And if it's an owner occupied and they can get in at 5%, 5% of $70,000 is $3,500. They have more than enough down payment baked into it. So they're in a great situation. They don't have to come out of pocket any money to buy the home. So let's run through this scenario. I borrowed the money at 12% and I paid off the home $50,000. I'm receiving $1,000 a month, but I'm taking $100 of that every single month and I'm putting it in a deposit for the buyer to use as their down payment. But I'm still netting $900 a month. I'm paying $500 a month to the private money lender and he's happy, right? He's in first position on the home. So I'm pocketing $400 a month. I am cash flowing $400 a month. Now let's go 2 years down the road. I then sell this property. They get a traditional finance through a mortgage. They pay me $70,000. I take $50,000 of that $70,000 and I pay it to the private money lender, which he would want to do that again with me for a second. He's making 12% on his money every single year that is secured by first position on real estate, right? I've made $400 a month. 400 times 24 months is $9,600 plus the $20,000 I made off the difference of what I bought it for and what I sold it at. I am making almost $30,000 a home. And because I'm using none of my own money, I can do this over and over and over again. Imagine if you had 20 of these homes that you're turning every few years. That is a pretty good cash flow on a flip. That's why I call it cash flow flipping. It is an amazing strategy. So what are some crucial, important elements when it comes to cash flow flipping? Number one, you have to be able to find properties. And you can find properties a number of different ways. I love to utilize Zillow, where I set up filters to look exactly for the homes I'm looking for, below $100,000, maybe 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, or maybe at least 900 square feet. You can set up all those filters. I love to use real estate agents. They've been some of my best friends in this scenario. I love to use off-market software like RealFlow, where I can set up filters and find properties that are maybe in pre-foreclosure or foreclosure that I can go and get at a really good price. The second thing you have to do is be able to find a lender, somebody that's willing to borrow you money. This might be the biggest challenge of this whole strategy, but let me tell you, if you find the right person, it's not necessarily risky for them, right? Because they are in first position on a piece of real estate that is appraised at roughly 30 to 40% higher than what they're lending money on. That is a dream scenario for any lender out there. And they're in first position, and you can even personally guarantee it if you wanted to give them a little bit more comfort. But typically this lender is somebody that you know, like, and trust, and they know, like, and trust you. And I'll tell you this, if you do one deal with them and it ends up being a good scenario where they make 8, 9, 10, 12% of the money without lifting a finger, they will be a lender for you forever. The next thing you need to do is be able to find buyers. Once again, real estate agents are great with this. They know people who want to buy a home but maybe can't get traditional financing, or lenders in the area who've talked to people who maybe don't qualify for a loan but through a lease option and 2 years down the road would be able to qualify. Those are great options. Another place to find buyers in a lease option is Facebook Marketplace. There are groups set up on Facebook specifically for people that are looking at lease option deals. And the last component is understanding the process, which I explained in detail, being able to get the home at a low price and utilizing a lease option strategy to begin the cash flow just coming in every single month. And when you close on that home, having a big lump sum coming into your hands. And this is why I'm so excited about this strategy, because it solved a problem where there was no cash flow on a really great real estate strategy, and it solves that problem. Plus, it's one that you can do in any economy. I got so excited about this strategy that I came up with that I immediately created a website and I wrote a book about this and about how to do this from A to Z, a complete guide for cash flow flipping. I feel like this strategy can pull so many people out of financial challenges and put them on the road to financial freedom in building massive wealth through real estate investing. Because of that, I'm going to give my ebook, Cash Flow Flipping, away 100% free. You don't have to pay shipping and handling. It's a digital book. It goes into complete detail about how I do this strategy. Just click on the link below, cashflowflipping.com, and click on Get My Book, and you'll receive it 100% free. Have an awesome day. Thanks for stopping by.